Well, hey, what's going on, YouTube? You guys, I wanted to make a video today on an outstanding hunting rifle and a cartridge that's been forgotten by most today, but it is an extraordinarily good cartridge. I mean, it's light recoiling, it packs plenty of power, and it's just a cartridge that I wish that they would start manufacturing again today. It really is a sweet shooter. I mean, really. It is the 6.5 by 50 Japanese Arisaka cartridge. Now this here's a vintage box of Norma. I also have quite a few boxes of Hornady newer ammunition, and I'm going to talk about this in a minute. This here is a Japanese Arisaka. I don't know the exact date on this gun. It is highly sporterized by myself. When I bought it, it was in poor condition, and I've re-blued, re-sanded. I've turned it into the rifle that I wanted just for a hunting rifle. Now, it was already in this configuration, uh, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. But let me give you some history on this cartridge. So the 6.5 by 50 Japanese cartridge, rifle just started to slide there. It actually, it was adopted by the Japanese, and it was back in 1897. Uh, Along with the Type 30 Arisaka infantry rifle. And anyways, this cartridge lasted all the way until the end of World War II because they did seek to replace it because they found out that the full power cartridge, like the 8x57 that the Germans were using, was so effective. And they saw its effectiveness in the MG34. So they wanted something more powerful. And sometime around, I think 1937 or somewhere around then, they sought to replace every rifle, but due to lack of machinery and just, the war effort and everything that was happening, the cartridge still was in use to the end of the war. So the 6.5 by 50, it really is an extraordinary cartridge. Now this rifle, like I said, it is they did take the Mauser action. Let me go ahead and pull the bolt. As you see, it's the same release like on a Mauser. It has this little plate on the side, that little piece that kind of bows out. And if I take that and I bow it out, the bolt comes right out. And now, very much like a Mauser action. Of course, it is Mauser. It's a Japanese Mauser action. It's made from some of the hardest steel, uh, probably probably ever made in that time period. But you can see it's the claw extractor, and as that rotates in, it locks into place, and that shell is just really, you're not going to lose a grip on it, that's for sure. You're going to extract every time. Wonderful, proven extractor. The back of the bolt's very different, however. Now this little tab that you see here, this was added. This is not in the original stock configuration. It was just circular. This is what this particular example that I have has been sporterized. And I found this rifle in a pawn shop in a lot worse condition than this, and I went ahead and bought it for around 150 bucks. And this was a while back. And when I bought it, the stock, it right now it's just smooth. I've resanded, restained, and I put a Ruger recoil pad on it. When I bought this rifle, it had a 3x9 Simmons scope, and I've since replaced it with this Weaver K6. I believe it's a K6 C3. It's a straight 6 power. Yeah, K6 C3. That's right. And this is a great scope. Probably has a 38 to a 40 millimeter objective. I'm not exactly sure, but it lets in a lot of light. I have the original Weaver mounts with the Weaver scope, steel bands on a steel tube, and it has been drilled and tapped, and I believe that is an aluminum rail. I wish that was steel, but it probably doesn't matter. That's the only critique I could give on it. It actually makes it lighter being aluminum, but it's always good to have solid steel in my opinion. The only defect on this gun is that little notch that has been cut out. Now that part needs to be there, but this part, it just makes no sense to me. I think somebody made a little mistake, because when you take the bolt and you slide it back in, if you push hard enough, it'll make that piece bow on the side. You can see it start to bow there, and then it jumps it. Or you can take your hand and you can let it out and, you know, run it easier. I just, you know, in making this video. Okay. So when you get right there, it actually cocks. It cocks on close. And that takes some pressure to do that. But when you're running the bolt, it happens instantly. Now this isn't the original. That has actually been, that's part of the sporterization here. You can see that rough angle. It's been polished and smoothed out, but somebody actually welded that. The original bolts on these they came out vertically and they had just a knob. So, but that's actually needed because as you see when the bolt opens, you see the clearance of the scope there. Now it won't touch it no matter what you do, but I'm probably playing with a little over a 1/16 of an inch. But no matter what I do, it's not going to touch it. It's the perfect fit. So, and it comes out far enough that your hand doesn't bump it. You have plenty of space. So that just it was pretty lucky actually. But it's a great rifle. And that little cosmetic spot, you know, you don't see it. I could even get some wood filler and fill that in if I wanted to. It doesn't bother me too much. So I got little swivel studs, and it's just been a great rifle. Anyhow, let me show you the cartridge here. So I have this vintage box of Norma, and yeah, it's 6.5 Japanese, 156 grain, soft point, 10.1 grams. So let me get my camera to focus here. It's wanting to focus on me. Come on, refocus. I don't know why my camera is just focusing on me today. That's okay. Go ahead and pull some of these out here. Interesting looking round. Now, you know, it's an elongated cylinder type projectile. Again, 6.5 is roughly 26 caliber. And it's by 50. And I can just, here's an AK round sitting on my desk. I've often used this for comparison. I have the bases at the exact same level there. So you can see it's definitely more powder than a AK round. And you see the back of the bases, this here's the Arisaka. A little bit bigger. So you get, and you are firing, like I said, 158 grain bullet with this Norma. Now let me grab one of the Hornady real quick. This stuff's not cheap. This is a $29.99 for this box of Hornady. These are 140 grain soft point, 6.5 by 50 Japanese. So go ahead and pull one of these guys out. And this is the ammo that I was able to find. So here I'll kind of have all three here in the comparison. Let's see if I can't. Really got to find a better way to do this in the future, but well, here, just the two Arisaka rounds. You can see the difference in the tip there. The Norma being the vintage, and the Hornady, you know, just like a soft point, like a hunting round. But you know, it's a great round, and I tell you what, I've shot 223. I probably have 5 or 6 223 bolt action rifles, and I have a 243. I have, you know, various cartridges of the same size, but I tell you, this stuff is light recoiling. I would actually say this is, you really can't tell the difference in this and a 223 when you're out on the range. I mean, you literally, to prove a point, I wouldn't do this, and I don't recommend anyone ever does this, but you could actually take the buttstock, gotta remember my mic here, you could put the buttstock against your cheek and just, it doesn't kick enough. And I really would do that too. I'm not just saying this gun has no kick. If you ever get a chance to shoot one, you'll realize it's just an extraordinary round. And as far as your velocity, you're looking at, like, you know, with the, let me see what it says here. Just the Hornady, they show this Hornady is 2,225 feet per second. And if you pause it right there, if I can get it clear. Camera's not wanting to focus close up today. But 2,225 feet per second. Your 100 yard is, okay, if you have a 200 yard zero, which is what Hornaday is showing on their chart here, your 100 yard would be plus 3.7 inches, and your 300 yard would be negative 13, 400 yard negative 38, 500 yard negative 77. So that's for a 200 yard zero with this particular 140 grain soft point bullet. And this stuff, I have to say, this is an accurate rifle, you guys. Not only is it light recoiling, but it's accurate. I mean, I'm 2 MOA all day with this Norma, and I would say it's 1.25, 1.25 inch with the Hornaday at 100 yards, and that's a true 100 yards. I've been to a lot of ranges where the range is off 10 or 15 yards, and I'm out there with my Hollow Sun rangefinder, and I'm they say it's 100 yards, it's 110. So at my private club, I do my range every time. I like a 100 yard zero. That's just what I prefer. But and you can see this vintage box of ammo. That's the what can I say? That's the wrench in the machine here. It's the ammo cost. This is vintage and it's 1895 from way back when. I'm guessing probably the 1990s or something. Could be 80s. Today, if you want to shoot Norma 6.5 Japanese Arisaka, expect to pay $2.50 a shot. It's that bad. Now, I got lucky when I found this Hornaday. Paid $30 a box. So that puts me at $1.50 a shot. And I bought 6 boxes. I bought all they had when I probably spent 150 or more on ammo when I found it. And I think I have about probably right around 76 rounds of the stuff left. And honestly, you guys, that's probably all I'll ever buy unless I just happen to see some sometime and it happens to be the same grain or weight, or maybe I'm just able to buy 2 or 3 boxes of something different. I want to have a quantity if I change ammo types, but you know what I mean. It's an outstanding rifle. And yeah, that scope that it was originally on it, the Simmons 3x9, my problem with that scope was this. If the image was clear, the crosshair was blurry, or vice versa. I would twist the fine focus on the back of the cap, and then my crosshair was clear at 100 yards, but then my image was blurry. I just couldn't find the sweet spot in that scope, and it, is not an expensive scope, but I was able to pick up this Weaver K6C3 for $97 shipped on eBay, and it's just in outstanding condition. Super clear glass. Generally I keep these bikini covers on it. I took them off before the video, but I'll go ahead and put those back on there. I'll put them back on there later. Uh, an outstanding scope, outstanding rifle. If you ever can find one of these, now I did re-blue it. When I found it, it just had some wear. I took the Birchwood Casey's Super Blue and Perma Blue first, and I got some steel wool type stuff and just kind of sanded it down. Took the stock off the rifle, and this underplate that you see right there, there's a little switch in the top of that trigger guard. You can see it there underneath my eye. And if you push that, we've seen this before. There's your Z spring or leaf spring or whatever it's called, and there's your floor plate. You get 5 in the internal magazine here, and then you get 1 in the tube chamber. So that gives you, 6 shots fully loaded, and that action's fast. That action is quick. Cocks on close. But I'm okay with that. Now, I said that little tab, somebody welded that on in the past, and that's because of the way the safety works on here. Let me put it like this so you can see. That is on fire right now. If I wanted to engage the safety, I push that in, and then I twist it. If I push it in and twist it, now you see that little piece is up. Somebody put that on there because that indicator is important. You want to indicate, if we're out here, we're on fire. If we're perpendicular, we're on safe. That was the idea there. The Japanese, of course, they never had a scope in the way, so they would just use their palm, and that was the idea. But now it's on safe, of course, it's not going to do anything. Flip it over to fire. Every time I ever do this, I check those chambers. Flip it over to fire. 6 pounds, maybe 7. But it's crisp, little little spongy, a little bit of take, not really take up, but just it's kind of a heavier, spongy pool, and then it just breaks. But I don't care. But a good shooter is going to be able to work with whatever trigger he has. I've learned that, you guys. It's if your crosshairs are right, when that mechanism breaks, when that sear falls and that pin goes forward, if your crosshairs are right, you're going to hit. You just got to learn to work with what you got. Uh, but I don't mind this trigger one bit. But outstanding rifle. I did free float the barrel. I can show you that. This is something I want to talk about in a minute too. This barrel is completely free floated all the way back. I did that. If it improved accuracy, I don't know. It shoots great. It's one of the first things I did. This actually came with this Weaver scope when I bought it on eBay, like I said, right around $100. But this is a post reticle scope, and let me go ahead and talk about that. Here's the vintage instruction manual here, and if you look at that reticle, this one right here. Let me see if I can get that to focus just right. Yeah, you could pause at any time because even the duplex is not called a duplex in this vintage catalog here, or instruction manual, not catalog. But so the idea behind this post reticle was quick target acquisition. If you have a big post like that, uh, you can just get the rifle up and you can see it real quickly. It's not like a fine crosshair is good for target shooting, but if you have this post reticle, the idea is you can just shoulder that rifle and then you can just find them right on that post. And I mean I like that reticle a lot. It's nice. So like I said, accurate rifle. If I this is I paid around 160 for the rifle when I first bought it. I got 100 in the scope. I only have 260 bucks in this gun. Probably another 150 in ammo. That was the expensive part in my opinion. But outstanding light recoiling deer rifle. Texas deer. Yeah, you could take mule deer, I suppose. It has plenty of power. The Norma is hotter than the Hornady. The Norma is 2,428 feet per second with a bullet that's 18 grains heavier. So, if your normal ammunition for this might be somewhere around 140 grain doing 25 or 2600, or the Hornady, I think they underload this slightly, but I kind of like that because it's still I've killed a hog with this rifle, and I mean it dropped it in about from when the bullet hit it right in the shoulder cavity through the heart or lungs. I'm not sure. It made it about 25 yards, and it dropped it. So no problems there. It definitely is a bigger cartridge than the 7.62 by 39. You're getting an extra 30 or 40 grains of lead, and your velocities, maybe 100 higher or 100 lower, depending on your ammunition selection. But it's a good round, very good round. If you ever can pick one up and it's in good shape, I do recommend it. And the Weaver K series scopes, those scopes really came together due to what was learned in World War II on scope technology. And I don't know if I'll be able to show you that post reticle. It's kind of going to be difficult here. I mean, you saw it earlier, but let me see. I don't think I'm going to be able to show you that. It's a fine post, I can say that. And Yeah, this K series. I mean, it was what was learned in World War II. And when they started making these in the late 40s and early 50s, they were outstanding scopes, and they still are to this day. You get steel tube. The scopes are built like a tank. The glass is clear. You can adjust your fine focus on the back if your eye is sensitive, or often when I buy a Weaver K series scope of any type, I have to finally adjust those two rings in the back. You don't want to take it off, that'd be bad, but you adjust it. It gets very clear. But just kind of neat stuff. But I definitely recommend 6.5 by 50 Japanese rifle. Ammo is going to be your problem. So just remember that if you find one, if you can find it with a box of ammo, you're much better off. Now, since this is a Christian channel, you guys, I want to go ahead and share something that's been on my mind lately. This is bothering me a lot at work last night. Now, in the New Testament, I'm sitting here with a New American Standard Bible. That's just when I was in Bible college, that's what we used. I used to love the King James and still do. I have a King James. It's right on my shelf, but right there under that lamp. The King James and the NASB are just my two favorite translations, and I love the ESV. But, Paul, he says not to wrangle about words. It leads to ruin of the hearers. When you study the term, meaning, the meaning is what's significant. It's what the author willed to convey to the reader. And make no mistake, some of the newer translations do convey that message better. It's easier to understand. Now, the NASB, a lot of times they do use pretty scholarly words, but uh, it is a translation that I prefer, and it is kind of known to be the most literal to the Hebrew and Greek. But once again, I'm getting off topic. Here I am in the book of Ephesians, chapter 6, verse 10. This is about the armor of God. Paul says, finally, be strong in the Lord and the strength of his might. Put on the full armor of God so that you will be able to stand against the schemes of the devil. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against rulers, against the powers, against the world forces of this darkness, against spiritual forces of wickedness in heavenly places. So you see, Paul is talking about against rulers. Now, who's the ruler of this world, according to Christ in the Synoptic Gospels? It's Satan. It's the prince of the demons, Beelzebub, Lucifer, the morning star that has fallen. Ezekiel gets into that. He was created as an anointed cherub. I mean, very beautiful, angelic being. And then wickedness was found in him. And he fell. And if you take that verse in Revelation where 1/3 of the angels fell with him, Revelation, the chronology, it's all over the place, the different times and at which things are happening. And I am of the opinion that when Satan fell, 1/3 of the angels fell with him. In the book of it's the book of Jude, I believe, in the New Testament, it talks about how these angels and principalities, they're in chains of darkness awaiting the great day. But then also, depending on your view of Revelation, there's times that these angels and beings are locked up, and then there's times that they're let loose. This is for a further study, but Paul, he makes it clear here, but you're battling the rulers. You're not fighting your own flesh and blood. The flesh in and of itself is not evil. It's a good thing created by God. There's a struggle there, but what you're really fighting is the rulers, powers, the forces of this darkness against the spiritual forces of wickedness in heavenly places. So evil kings, leaders, that Satan has given them power to whom he has pleased. Today, this would be crooked politicians, people in high places, people that are extremely wealthy, and yet it's in unrighteousness. When he talks about these world forces of darkness, it is Jesus repeatedly made comments, for he knew what was in man. And he was the light of man. He came unto his own, and they did not receive him. They were blinded. They were hypocrites, liars. Scribes, Pharisees, more concerned with tassels on their garment than loving the people. I mean, this is just something to think about. It's deep. We're not wrestling flesh and blood, but we're wrestling against these spiritual forces of darkness, fallen angels, spiritual things in heavenly places, you know, that are currently seeking to control this current world and turn humanity away from God. It's battles in the heavenlies, literally, for your soul, my soul, and whoever they can deceive. There's deception today, uh, possibly more so than there ever has been before. I mean, deception is a huge thing. But I don't want to, dissuade you. There is a lot of light today. We have good Bibles. I mean, we have freedom. At least here in America, we still do. Now, there's another passage I want to share with you, and this is from the Old Testament. And I was thinking about this morning when I woke up. It's in Ecclesiastes. I do believe that's written by Solomon. Chapter 4. I'm going to start in verse 1. Then I looked again at all the acts of oppression which were being done under the sun, and behold, I saw the tears of the oppressed, and that they had no one to comfort them. And on the side of the oppressors was power, but they had no one to comfort them. So I congratulated the dead, who are already dead, more than the living, who are still living. But better off than both of them is the one who has never existed, who has never seen the evil activity that is done under the sun. And this is just a very sad verse, because I do believe that God gave Solomon more wisdom than any man that ever was or will be. So if he's saying that he's congratulating the dead, you know, and saying that they're better off because they never see the evil. So why are people turning against God? Why are people seeing the evil in this present world and then turning against God? Is it not because this world is completely fallen, because there's spiritual darkness in high places with power that's oppressing the righteous? And then no one's to comfort them. Well, luckily here in the New Testament, we have the Holy Spirit of promise that is sealed for the believer. That's the baptism of the Spirit in a way. You are sealed with the Holy Spirit of promise. You can baptize yourself with water, and that's an act of, like Peter says, it's not the washing off of dirt, but it's the spiritual renewal. You're doing this act as a sense of cleaning yourself, rededicating your life to Christ. But then when you receive the Spirit, now you're sealed with the Holy Spirit of promise until the day of redemption. A seal and sign of the children of God. We are comforted now. But think about back in this time, before the Spirit was outpoured. Behold, I saw the tears of the oppressed, and that they had no one to comfort them. And on the side of the oppressors was power, rulers, kings. Just like today, it's a lot more in the spiritual realm. It's not necessarily as physical as it once was. But you got to take this into consideration. When Jesus was walking, walking the earth, going from town, preaching, there was I should have found this verse, but it's okay. There was a city that he went into, and it actually says in the Bible that he could not do many miracles there because of their lack of faith. Back in the Old Testament, it wasn't, if there was a God, it was what God did you serve. The faith was much stronger in the ultimate spiritual realities that have created us and caused us to be. Today it's just people are trying to pretty much argue against everything, and like what Paul would say, it's what's falsely called science that's leading people astray. They're trying to just displace God entirely. And they actually hold that position in faith, which is crazy. Yeah, I won't even get into all that, but it's like that today. People are so skeptical, and they would rather believe I mean, it's obvious that God's extremely intelligent, more than we could imagine. He's created this world with creativity and power. But I'm just making my point. People don't often recognize that. They would attribute it to science or some other way. And it's possible that God did use some of these methods to create things. There's different views on all that, but either way, it is Him. He is the creator. There is a very intelligent design here. These are just my thoughts today, you guys. It's just sorry. It's sad to see that today the oppressed are still in many places, you know, suffering with tears, and their oppressors have power. You know, it's like sheep that are led to the slaughter. And as we grow closer and closer to the true end of the age, uh, where this mark of the beast, you won't be able to buy or sell unless you take this microchip mark, whatever it is. This is, you read the book of Thessalonians, this man that'll pompous, charismatic speaker, most likely. He exalts himself over every so called object of worship. There will be a figure like that one day, you guys, and it will be like that. Uh, I'm getting off topic here. I'm not trying to get into an end times message, but I'm just trying to bring your focus to the truth that we are not fighting flesh and blood. There are true spiritual forces of wickedness that are heavily influencing men and people that are deceived and leading people astray. And the true power or ruler of this world, under God's sovereignty, is the devil. He gives it to whom he pleases. This world is passing away. We are seeking a world with a builder that is God, like in the book of Hebrews. Abraham was just a pilgrim. Paul was passing through. All his hope was in the next life. So this is just this is just the word of the day, you guys. This is the stuff that's been on my mind. But thanks for listening. If you made it this far, please like, comment, subscribe. And if you ever have an opportunity to get a nice Arisaka, all this is solid steel. It's a very good rifle. It'll outlive me. And now that I've kind of restored it to what I would consider an excellent hunting rifle, very lightweight to have that free floated barrel, just an excellent rifle. And the bolt comes together real easy. Many would even argue that the Japanese Mauser action was an improvement of the German. Personally, I don't take it that far because I've taken the bolt down. The bolt, firing pin, and spring, it actually comes apart in just 4 pieces. It's simpler, but I still think the Germans is a little, as far as this part, the rear of the bolt, just how it all holds together, I prefer the German style myself. And I have another rifle of the Gewehr 98 and the 8x57 Mauser, so go check that out, you guys, if you haven't seen it. But thanks for tuning in today, and y'all stay blessed. And keep that armor on, stay in the word, know the truth. Guys, have a good day.